8 Sinister Trucker Horror Stories Revealed, the terrifying encounters you never knew existed. The diner was a flickering beacon on the edge of darkness, a junkyard of neon nostalgia amidst the grime of Ravenwood. Every time the door swung open, shadows danced across the cracked floor, as if the spirits of the lost were weaving in and out between greasy booths and half-empty coffee mugs. Sarah, with her fraying apron and weary smile, poured coffee to the steady rhythm of tires on asphalt. She had just lost her day job, an unexpected blow that sent ripples of fear through her family. She needed this night shift, a lifeline for her and her 2 kids. Every night as she filled the mugs for her customers, rough-looking truckers with weary eyes, she listened to their haunting tales. Sinister stories spilled from their lips like spilled beans, tales of ghostly apparitions that haunted the highways, and dark figures that lurked just beyond the reach of headlights. "You'd be surprised how many disappear along those lonely stretches," one grizzled driver said, his voice low and gravelly. "Ain't just urban legends, you know." But tonight felt different. The air was thick, electric. She sensed something lurking outside, something that wasn't just a trucker's exaggerated tale. A heavy-duty truck sat idling in the parking lot, exhaust billowing like smoke from a forgotten fire. The driver, a man in a faded baseball cap, stared into the diner, his eyes piercing through the dim light, as if he could see every fear clawing at her heart. Sarah shivered, stirring the coffee pot without breaking eye contact. There was a predatory glint in his gaze that made her stomach churn. Just as she was about to dismiss her discomfort, a hushed conversation at the counter caught her ear. "Did you hear about those disappearances?" Another trucker whispered, leaning in closer. "Local folks gone missing, no trace left behind." The conversation felt like a chill running down her spine, and when the man in the cap looked her way again, Sarah felt a jolt, a warning shot fired straight through her anxiety. She fought to keep her composure. The weight of a long night pressed on her shoulders, and fatigue wrapped around her like a thick fog. Ignoring the alarm bells ringing in her mind, she closed up shop, pushing through the creeping sensation of dread. But as the last customers filed out, she felt it again, the weight of those eyes, heavy and focused, drawing closer with each passing moment. She reached for her phone, her hands trembling as she dialed the local police, but their dismissive tone made it clear. This was just another night in Ravenwood. As she wiped down the counter, the dread morphed into something sharper. The truck driver returned more frequently, sticking around longer, his glances growing more unsettling. He was weaving his own horror story into the fabric of the town, sitting amongst the truckers as they told tales of shadowy figures tempting drivers to make fatal stops. The realization hit her like a slap: he wasn't just a trucker. He was part of the sinister lore that cloaked Ravenwood. Each whispered piece of folklore connected him deeper into the hidden darkness of her community, laying bare old wounds and buried fears. Despair settled in her gut as she weighed her choices. Should she confront him? Or would that only lead her deeper into danger? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. She glanced toward the cafe's window, catching a glimpse of the driver standing in the shadows, heart racing as a slow smile crept across his face. Was he taunting her? A shiver ran down her spine. Was this the moment that would either save her or seal her fate? She had to act. The clock was ticking, and Ravenwood's horrors clawed closer, ready to consume them all. The diner's door creaked open once again, and the chill of the night rushed in, cutting through the thick stench of fried food. Sarah's heart skipped as the driver sauntered in, the jangle of his keys disrupting the quiet hum of the diner. He took off his cap, revealing a wild mane of hair that framed his sharp features. "Long night, huh?" he said, his voice smooth like the greasy countertop she wiped just moments ago. Every instinct screamed for her to back away, to seek refuge among the shadows. But she couldn't show fear. She had her kids to think about, and she wouldn't let a stranger make her quake. She forced a smile, though it was more of a grimace. Just trying to keep the coffee flowing, she replied feebly, pouring him a steaming cup. The smell of the brew mingled with the sour scent of apprehension, her stomach twisting further. He leaned onto the counter, his eyes narrowed. You know what they say about this place, right? Strange things happen around Ravenwood. A fella could disappear without a trace. His grin widened, teeth white against his tanned skin, yet it felt sharp, dangerous. The other truckers around the diner paused, their conversation stilted as they shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Sarah felt their eyes on her too. They knew. They sensed the threat. Yeah, I've heard the stories, she managed, attempting to infuse strength into her voice. But stories are just stories. Oh, sweetheart, you're in for a real wake-up call. You never really know what's lurking in the dark until you're rummaging through its secrets. He leaned in closer, biting down on a word laced with menace. This here diner? It's special. A stop-off point for the unseen, if you catch my drift. The words crawled under her skin like 1,000 ants. Fighting the urge to flee, she forced herself to remain steady. I think I should get back to work, she stammered, reaching for the rag again, muscle memory clashing against her instinct to escape. Without another word, he straightened and turned his back to her, looking through the window at the night. Sarah risked a glance outside, her heartbeat drumming loudly as she saw a movement, a figure shifting slowly in the shadows of the lot. The cold air felt heavier, as if it carried the weight of grudges long buried. The truck driver then spoke in a hushed, almost reverent tone. Some people think this place is their last stop. They never leave, you know. Not really, he turned back to her, the smile replaced with a hard gaze. You don't want to be a part of that folklore. With every word, the diner's walls closed in around her. She glanced at the clock, almost closing time. Would it be better to confront him now, or wait for an opportune moment? Her heart thrashed in her chest like a trapped animal. Why don't you tell me about one of those stories? She said, forcing a humorless laugh that barely masked her fear. He leaned closer again, his breath hot against her ear, and whispered, one word of warning, darling, don't ever trust the headlights on an empty road. Sometimes they lead you where you don't want to go. The lights in the diner flickered, and the shadows seemed to stretch and crawl with life. A surge of dread swept through Sarah. She had to make a decision. Did she dare pull the truth from him, or was it better to retreat and safeguard her children from this looming darkness? With a deep breath, she met his gaze, ready to confront the terrifying unknown. But was she prepared for the horror that might emerge from a simple question? The door swung open again, and a gust of wind howled as a familiar figure stepped inside, eyes wide in sheer panic. Sarah, you have to get out of here. It's coming. Chilling dread enveloped her as she turned to the newcomer. Was this the moment she'd fought so hard against? And what, exactly, was coming for her? The room felt like it was tightening around her, the walls seemingly inching closer. Sarah's breath quickened as she stared into the wide-eyed face of her friend, Lisa. Lisa, what are you talking about? Sarah demanded, torn between worry for her friend and the unsettling presence of the truck driver hovering nearby. It's inside the diner, Sarah. Lisa's voice quaked, her words tumbling out in frantic gasps. I saw it outside. Something is. The truck driver chuckled, his laughter peeling through the thin veneer of fear. Looks like your little friend has seen too much. I wonder if she knows what I know. He leaned closer, malicious glee glowing in his eyes. Stop it. Sarah snapped, fear giving her an unexpected boost of defiance. You're scaring her. Am I now? He took a step back, feigning innocence. The glint in his eyes was anything but innocent. I'm just trying to warn you both. This diner has a deep history. It's not just a regular stop. It's a crossroads. Crossroads? Lisa repeated, her voice trembling. What does that even mean? He rolled his eyes, then leaned forward again, inching dangerously close. It means you can find yourself in places you never intended to be. Or simply, disappear. His words dripped like venom, slithering around Sarah's neck and squeezing tightly. She resisted the urge to shove him away. Get out. Sarah commanded, her voice stronger than she felt. Get out or I'm calling the police. Police? He scoffed, turning his back to them. What can a bunch of uniformed sheep do against the kind of trouble that comes through these doors? He stared out at the darkness, his silhouette framed against the streetlights flickering ominously. One lonely truck sat idling in the distance, its headlights cutting through the gloom like a predator's gaze. Suddenly, the lights in the diner dimmed again. The shadows grew thicker, curling around them like tentacles. The other truckers, once content in their meals, shifted uneasily in their seats, eyes darting. Whispers began to rise like smoke, a symphony of unease threading through the air. Sarah. Lisa's voice broke through the veil of panic. We have to leave. Now. Not without my kids. Sarah shot back, her heart racing. She turned toward the back of the diner, where her children were. Just then, the front door swung wider, a heavy gust rushing in that sent napkins swirling like ghostly apparitions. The shadows deepened, flickering ominously as a powerful force brushed past her shoulder. The diner's fluorescent lights buzzed and flickered, casting an eerie glow over everything. Suddenly, the ominous weight shifted. Sarah heard the sound, low and faint at first but growing louder, an engine, revving harshly outside. Then came a faint scream, followed by foghorn-like wails that cut through the hum of the diner. Did you hear that? Lisa whispered, her eyes flitting between the door and the other customers. Panic was starting to ripple through them all. Maybe it's just the truck, Sarah began, but her voice trailed off as she felt a palpable dread seeping into her bones. She felt it again. Something was coming. Something dark and intangible. Every instinct in her screamed to grab her children and run. The truck driver turned back to face them, his grin wide and manic, the kind that had jagged edges. What's wrong? You don't want to find out what's out there? Please, Sarah begged, desperately scanning the diner's faces. But everyone looked transfixed by something outside, petrified. Then, for an instant, the lights flickered off completely, plunging the diner into darkness. The screams of the unseen shrieked into her ears, mingling with the echoes of her own heart. Sarah, it's your last chance. Lisa shouted, and the fear in her voice pulled Sarah back to the urgency of the moment. We have to go. Now. As the lights flickered back to life, Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She saw what stood at the edge of the diner. A figure, distorted and wrong, looming in the headlights of the truck. Was this what the driver meant? Was this the thing they hadn't wanted to see? Run! Sarah screamed. Urgency coursing through her veins. But before they could move, the truckers' laughter echoed again, chilling them to the core. Good luck getting out even if you try. And just like that, the entity stepped into the light, revealing a nightmarish visage. Sarah's feet felt anchored, prey to the terror she had only just begun to grasp. What was coming for them? What darkness had they unwittingly unleashed? Before Sarah could move, she felt a grip on her arm as the shadows converged. What followed next would change everything. The grip on Sarah's arm tightened like a vice, icy fingers clawing into her skin. Panic surged as she twisted to look at Lisa, but her friend had already bolted toward the back of the diner. The other patrons remained frozen, eyes wide and unseeing, staring at the shadows that now swirled with such menacing vigor. Sarah! Help! Lisa's voice rang through the chaos, but it felt distant, swallowed by the thickening dread filling the air. With a surge of adrenaline, Sarah broke free from the trucker's grasp, clutching her stomach as fear knotted inside her. She sprinted toward the back, her heart racing against the sound of the engine revving outside. The figure the entity moved in jerky motions, almost as if it were bending reality itself. It stepped onto the diner's threshold, a silhouette cloaked in shadows that seemed to pulse and breathe. "Get the kids!" Lisa shouted again, her voice quaking. As Sarah dashed down the narrow corridor toward the restrooms, she could hear the low rumble of the other truckers mumbling in hushed whispers. They were as frozen as statues, their meals forgotten, eyes reflecting fear and uncertainty. "Mommy!" Her daughter's voice cut through the weight of the atmosphere. It sent a burst of clarity rushing through Sarah. She turned sharply, heading toward the back booth where her children were. There they sat, wide-eyed and confused, bewildered by the flickering lights and muffled screams. "Come on!" Sarah grabbed both of their small hands, squeezing them tightly. Just then, the power surged again. The lights flickered back on. But something was different. The entity loomed at the diner entrance, its shape undulating like smoke, merging and breaking apart in ways that defied logic. The diesel truck's lights cut through the haze, illuminating the figure for a split second. It was neither human nor beast, a grotesque amalgamation, eyes void and dark, a mouth lined with jagged teeth that twisted into an unnatural grin. "Run!" Sarah hissed, dragging her children behind her as she aimed for the kitchen door. The truck driver was right behind them, his laughter a chilling echo, a taunt against their desperate flight. "You think you can escape? You are already part of it." They burst into the kitchen, and Sarah slammed the door shut, gasping for breath. The air felt thick not just with heat but with an unnatural chill. She pushed a metal cart in front of the door, praying it would hold. "Mom, what's happening?" Her son's voice wavered, fear etched across his innocent features. "I don't know, baby. But we need to be quiet. We'll find a way out." But silence was hard to maintain. Outside, the rumbles of the other truckers grew louder, their murmurs were urgent, frantic. Then came the low growl that rippled through the diner, a voice unnatural, dripping with malice. "You cannot hide. You are the next part of the story." Each word slithered into Sarah's head, wrapping around her thoughts like a coiled snake. She felt the weight of despair pressing into her mind. The children clung tightly to her, their small bodies trembling against hers. Without warning, the lights in the kitchen began to flicker, plunging them into darkness. The shadows stretched and crept along the floor, inching toward where they huddled. "Sarah!" Lisa's voice pierced the murky silence from outside, faint but clear. "You have to." A screech erupted from the front of the diner, a sound mingling with anguished cries and desperate gasps. Sarah's heart sank, recognition dawning in horror. The screams, they were familiar. They were the cries of the other truckers, the patrons who had remained transfixed, trapped in the web of this nightmare. What did we stumble into? Sarah's voice shook with the weight of realization. Just then, the door shuddered violently, a thick pulse thumping against it as if something enormous was trying to break through. With the reality of their situation crashing down on her, one thought reared its head amidst the chaos, chilling her beyond belief. Could they truly escape the maelstrom that had begun to engulf the diner, or were they destined to join the unwelcome story within? The door splintered under the pressure, and Sarah prepared to face whatever came next. What unspeakable horror awaited them on the other side? Would they survive the revelations to come? The door gave way, splintering with a crack that echoed through the kitchen like thunder. Darkness surged into their enclosure, swirling in maddening patterns. The children cried out, clutching Sarah's sides. "Mommy! I'm scared. Stay close." She hissed, her heart pounding. The sensation of countless eyes watching from the shadows pricked her skin. Just beyond the threshold, she could see the outline of the grotesque figure, its inhuman form staggeringly tall, looming with a predatory grace. There was no time to think. Sarah ripped the metal cart from its place, pushing it toward the door. The screech of metal on the tile shot through the air, a sound that promised to attract whatever hunted them. Then silence wrapped around them again. The growls outside faded momentarily, replaced by an eerie stillness so thick it felt like a wall. "Mom?" Her son's voice was barely a whisper, the tremor evident. Are we okay?" "We will be, if we stay quiet," she said, but even as she spoke, doubt clawed at her. Suddenly, a thud reverberated through the room, followed by the unmistakable sound of something heavy dragging across the floor. The blackness beyond the kitchen door thickened, swirling in on itself, and she could almost feel its hunger creeping closer. "Lisa!" Sarah shouted, her voice breaking. She strained to hear an answer, anything to assure her that her friend still fought, still resisted the nightmares. But the silence continued to throb around them, smothering hope. Then came a soft, slithering sound, like 1,000 whispered secrets spoken in hushed tones. It weaved through the kitchen, filling every corner with its dreadful cadence. Tension laced through her body, she felt trapped in a web of despair. As the shadows flickered with malevolence, Sarah turned, catching sight of her children. Their wide eyes reflected sheer terror, faces pale as moonlight. She could feel their trepidation, each heartbeat pounding against the suffocating air. "Don't let go of my hand," she commanded firmly, and they nodded, though helplessness swirled in their innocent gazes. Shaking, Sarah peered around the kitchen. Battered cans, broken plates, discarded silverware, abandoned relics of a once busy diner now felt like remnants of a long-lost world. An idea struck her, desperation igniting a spark. "Come on. We need to find a way out." The three of them tiptoed toward the back exit, their footsteps muted against the grimy tile. She pushed open the kitchen door cautiously, peering into the darkness beyond. What she saw stopped her cold. Every table and chair in the diner had been overturned, a chaotic scene painted in a horror that was more than mere destruction, it was emblematic of a battle lost. And in the dim light, a figure crawled along the floor, dragging itself with grotesque fluidity. Sarah's breath caught in her throat as the thing turned its face towards her, half-melted, eyes hollow, locked in an expression of primal longing. "No!" She staggered back, her children yanking her arms, cries escaping their lips. "Run!" They turned to flee, but the air thickened with an unspeakable force, sucking the light from their surroundings. Just then, a loud crash splintered through the silence, and a shadow grew at the entrance, one that had solidified into a shape too familiar to be ignored. The truck driver loomed, grinning with a madness that twisted his features into an unholy mask. "Did you think you could escape? You've only just begun to play your part." His voice burned with venom as the chilling laughter cut through Sarah like ice. The shadows quivered at his command, pulsating with a life of their own. As the sheer weight of dread crashed over them, Sarah realized there'd be no turning back. This was no ordinary horror, it painted a nightmare that extended far beyond the diner. With a fierce resolve, she clutched her children tightly. There had to be a way out. But could they face the horrors lurking within the diner, or had they already become integral to the dark tale unfolding? Just then, as the malevolence encroached further in, Sarah spotted a door, a potential escape route glimmering just beyond the oncoming tide of darkness. But would reaching it be worth the price they'd have to pay? The air thickened, laden with an overpowering stench of decay, twisting into a suffocating fog that clung to their skin. Sarah felt every nerve in her body alert, every instinct screaming at her to move, to flee, to escape the darkness that loomed nearer. "Mommy!" Lily's voice trembled, shaking her with the fervor of pure fright. The echoes of feral laughter bounced off the diner's walls. It was as if the very structure was laughing at their plight. "Stay close, don't let go," Sarah whispered, forcing her voice to remain steady. The door to the back exit stood before them, a flicker of salvation. "Mommy, what about Lisa?" Jason bravely asked, but there was a quiver in his voice that shattered her resolve. The image of her friend, lost to darkness, clawed at her heart. No time for grief. No time to think. "Now!" she urged, and they sprinted toward the door, their feet slipping slightly on the slick tile. The world outside promised freedom, but was it merely another illusion? They almost reached the threshold when the ground below them erupted into chaos. The walls of the diner seemed to close in, groaning as if alive, while the air crackled with an unnatural energy. Sarah couldn't look back. What lurked behind was too terrifying to imagine. The door loomed closer, but the weight of the shadows dragged at their heels. With a final lurch, they burst through, skidding into the alley outside. Gasping, her lungs aflame, she turned to see the night sky sprawled above them, a contrast to the suffocating gloom that surrounded the diner. "Run!" she yelled, grabbing both children by the arms. They darted into the desolation of the alleyway, fear morphing into desperate adrenaline. But the sound of their escape echoed too brightly against the silence of the night. Then came the unmistakable shuffle of pursuit. It wasn't a sound, no, it was a whisper, a terrifying promise of what lay just behind them. She could feel it, creeping, clawing, hungry. "Left!" Sarah barked, guiding them down a narrow passage, their breaths coming in sharp bursts. She desperately scanned the area, searching for a sign, a hint to save them. At the end of the alley, a gate loomed, rusted and threatening. But the laughter faded, and in its place came the growl, deep and guttural, an echo that left her stomach churning. It was an unending reminder of the darkness they had narrowly escaped, but it still followed, hovering, ready to strike. The alley opened onto a street shrouded in darkness, the streetlights flickering ominously. Desolation surrounded them, store windows loomed like vacant eyes, always watching. Sarah stumbled, her heart racing. Where were they? Was anyone else left? "Mommy, I see it!" Lily cried, pointing to a flicker of movement ahead. A figure emerged from the shadows, its outline jagged, grotesque against the dim light. It was small, hunched, like a child, but a child twisted and malformed into something dreadful. The figure paused, tilting its head to observe them with a hollow gaze, and then it grinned. More players joined the game, it rasped, voice scraping like nails against a chalkboard. The children gasped, stepping back instinctively. "Run!" Sarah screamed, the command ripping from her throat. They bolted again, but the street stretched longer than it should have, every step felt heavier, as though the very ground conspired against them. In the distance, through the haze of panic, she glimpsed another alley, darker, more menacing. But they had no choice. They dove into it, desperation anchoring them forward, ignoring the nagging sensation that maybe they were heading further into peril. "Are we safe yet, Mom?" Jason wheezed, looking back nervously as they ducked behind trash cans. "Not yet. Keep moving." Each second twisted into eternity. Shadows lurked like predators with wicked plans. Sarah could almost feel the predatory glee of the unseen presence hunting her family. But just as they rounded a corner, the ground trembled, and a loud crack split the night. From behind them, the ground buckled and split apart, revealing an abyss from which a surge of black mist poured forth, trailing like sinuous fingers reaching for them. "Mommy! Don't stop!" With no place left to run, Sarah advanced toward a crumbling wall, a last resort, hoping against hope that the shadows chasing them would not sink their claws into the whispers of light that beckoned from above. Then, something was there far above, hovering above the chaos, a flickering neon sign that read "Exit." But what awaited them beyond the neon glow? Would salvation turn into another nightmare? The clamor of shadows growing closer, she raced toward the faint glimmer of hope. Would she find freedom or face something far, far worse? The neon sign flickered violently, its light casting grotesque shadows across the alley walls. The abyss behind them churned, monstrous tendrils of darkness curling out like hungry fingers, reaching into the world. They were almost there, but with every frantic step, its laughter echoed louder in her ears, a sinister chorus that drowned her cries for help. "Faster!" she barked, an edge of panic slicing through her voice. The glimmer of escape seemed to waver, as if it teased them from a distance. Just beyond the wall, freedom flickered fitfully, but even that seemed to taunt her with false promises. Lily stumbled, arms flailing. Sarah felt a moment of sheer terror. She couldn't lose her. "Get up. We can't stop." She gripped her daughter's hand, yanking her upright. The growling morphed as they neared the exit, a chorus of growls layered with whispers that seemed to swirl within the shadows. The words entwined around her neck, suffocating her thoughts. "Join us, join the hunt, let go!" Jason cried, panic spilling over. "It's coming!" He pulled away, trying to get a look behind them. Sarah's heart raced as she caught sight of the figure again, just lingering at the edge of light, a swaying shadow, the edges razor-thin, its laughter a knife slicing through the tension. "No!" Sarah didn't have time to think. With a powerful yank, she pulled both children toward the sign. The wall loomed ever closer, jagged bricks looming like teeth ready to close in around them. "Mommy, I can't," Lily gasped, her small body trembling under the weight of their flight. "Just a little more. We're almost there." The words tumbled from her lips as she forced energy into every syllable, but the shadows clawed at her resolve. Just as she reached for the sign, a wave of cold washed over her. It sent a shiver racing down her spine. Suddenly, the ground beneath her feet erupted. Cracks spread like lightning, an ominous growl rumbling through the splintered asphalt. "We have to jump," she shouted, her feet moving before her mind could register the danger. The children clung tighter as she leapt, her heart pounding in her chest. They soared toward the exit, toward hope, only to feel a tug, a malevolent force wrenching her back. The shadow shot forward, a dark tide rushing across the ground, intent on pulling them under. In that instant, Sarah felt its sharp claws snatched at her feet. With an incredible push, she landed on the other side, dragging the children along with her just as a cold rush of mist collided with the wall they had escaped. The shadows howled, swirling in frustration, their lament a haunting siren song. Panting, they collapsed, the pavement cold beneath them, a stark contrast to the hell they had just fled. "Are we safe?" Jason whispered, quaking as he clung to Sarah's arm. For the briefest of moments, the world felt still. The cold air was alive, a sharp reminder of their near miss. She looked around, realizing they stood in a forgotten street, graffiti-covered walls and a sparse, flickering row of lights. It was grim yet eerily quiet, like the calm after a storm. Then came a rustle from the shadows nearby. Just out of reach of the lights, another shape rippled, sliding like oil across the pavement. Pushing off the ground, Sarah squinted into the darkness, heart thumping loud enough for her to hear. "Mom! Look!" Lily pointed, her voice shaking. Something moved, a figure, watching them, its eyes like burning coals in the night. The laughter returned, echoing off the walls, chilling her to the bone. They had escaped one nightmare, but what awaited them within this new hellhole? What horrors were lurking, waiting to greet them? "Stay close," Sarah whispered, fear curling around her heart again. She could feel the shadows creeping up once more. What was happening? Then the eyes opened wider, and a voice hissed, "Welcome to the endless night," and just like that, dread filled the air again, heavier than before. What awaited them beneath the surface of this new darkness? Would they find answers or yet another trap? The air felt different here, thick with a stale, bitter scent. Goosebumps prickled on Sarah's arms as they stumbled further into the dimly lit street, the last bits of neon light fading behind them. She held her breath, fear clawing its way back into her chest as the voice taunted them again, a cruel whisper that wrapped around them like a noose. "Mommy, I can't see." Lily whined, her small hand still grasping at Sarah's, her grip tight like a vice, desperate and trembling. "Just keep walking. We'll find a way out," Sarah urged, although her own doubt seeped into those words. The shadows stirred, teasing the edges of their vision. Every crack in the pavement seemed to shift and ripple, creating forms that danced in and out of focus. Jason turned to her, his face a canvas of confusion and fear. "What is that?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper, trembling fingers pointed into the encroaching darkness, where the vague outline of a figure awaited. It stood unnaturally still, the dim glow from the sporadic streetlights barely piercing the veil of night that encircled it. Sarah felt her heart race. "I don't know." Without warning, the figure lunged forward, shadows trailing like smoke behind it. "Join us!" The voice shrieked, crackling with laughter, and a cold hand reached out, brushing against Sarah's leg like ice. "Run!" The word erupted from her lips, a primal instinct. Instinctually, she wrenched Lily and Jason with her, darting down the alley that felt like it was closing in. She could hear their hearts beating, echoing alongside her screams. They shot around the corner, skidding to a halt in front of a dilapidated building, its windows shattered like the eyes of the dead. Seeing no other option, they dashed inside, the stale air clawing at their lungs. The interior was a realm of decay, the walls seemed to groan under the weight of despair, and the lurking darkness whispered promises of torment. "What do we do?" Jason gasped, chest heaving as he scanned the room. The shadows stretched and recoiled with movement in the corner of his eye, mocking them, refusing to let them rest. "Shoo!" Sarah hissed, pressing a finger to her lips. "We need to hide. Quick!" They ducked behind a battered couch, its upholstery threadbare and torn, one eye socket cast eerily empty. They listened, panting softly, hearts sinking in a rhythm of horror. The laughter grew louder, creeping closer, wrapping around them like a predator sizing up its prey. Sarah felt blood rush in her ears, drowning out the sound of her thoughts while every instinct screamed for them to flee. "Mommy," Lily whimpered softly. Sarah peeked over the couch, her heart plummeting as the figure loomed closer, its face a churning mass of shadows, eyes like two molten suns burning, angry, and filled with insatiable hunger. "Join us!" It beckoned again, the voice like nails on a chalkboard, reverberating through the room. Sarah pressed her eyes shut, hoping the darkness could swallow them whole, wishing it would drown out the sinister call. Suddenly, an old door creaked open, the hinges groaning like weary bones. A series of low growls emerged from the hallway beyond, the sound of something approaching, something hungry. "Please, don't let it find us," Jason whispered, desperation punctuating his words. But just when she thought it couldn't get worse, a terrible roar erupted from the darkness outside the building, rattling the very foundation beneath them. It was a monstrous sound, a blend of fury and longing that chilled her. "Get closer," Sarah urged, pulling the children tightly, desperation mingling with a flicker of hope. If they could just wait it out, maybe the shadows would lose interest. Then, she heard another sound of faint scratching from the walls, like claws gnawing at the wooden beams. And then, a whisper, softer this time, yet pervasive. "You can't escape, the hunt has just begun." Fear settled deep in Sarah's stomach as the scratching intensified. She peered over the couch one last time, her breath hitching as she caught sight of something that sent ice running through her veins. What was it? Was she truly beyond escape? With dread heavy in the air, Sarah felt the walls draw closer. What had they truly awakened, and who or what would find them first? The hunt was on. The scratching became a drumbeat in the silence, maddening, relentless, chipping away at Sarah's sanity. She felt it resonate in her bones, a sound that made her skin crawl. "Please, stop," she whispered, unsure if she was talking to the walls or to the universe itself, desperate for relief. Lily whimpered again, her voice trembling in the dark. "Mommy, what's happening?" Each word was a fresh stab at Sarah's heart, a reminder that she had to be strong, had to protect them. I don't know, baby," Sarah replied, glancing at Jason. His eyes were wide, reflecting terror and vulnerability, and she felt the weight of their lives pressing down on her. Do you think it will go away?" Jason asked, hoping against hope. But deep inside, Sarah knew this place was alive and feeding off their fear. Another shadow flickered in the corner of her eye. Sarah dared to look again. The outline of the figure was inches away now, a hulking mass of writhing darkness, shifting shapes and whispers curling around it like deadly smoke. Every inch it drew closer felt like a countdown to destruction. Mommy. Lily squeezed Sarah's hand tighter, her small fingers digging into her palm, sharp with fright. Get back. Sarah hissed suddenly, clutching the children, backing away as if the act could somehow shield them. It was a feeble attempt. Join us. The voice was closer, dripping over them like honey mixed with poison, sticky and suffocating. It coiled around Sarah's throat, tightening, urging her to comply, tempting her to surrender. Stay quiet. Sarah snapped, feeling her own panic surge. It wasn't just fear of the thing lurking outside, it was the worry that she might give in. We can't let it hear us. But the laughter continued, ringing like chimes in a cold wind, bold and mocking. And then came the growls from the hallway again, deeper now, reverberating with anticipation. Whatever approached was not just a figment of their fears, it was real, and it wanted them. The dark held promises of warmth and comfort, but Sarah knew that was a lie. Suddenly, an inhuman shriek echoed through the building, sudden and sharp. It sent the children into a fit of shivers. What was that? Jason breathed, voice cracking. I don't know. Sarah shot back, but the truth was more terrifying than anything. They were trapped within a nightmare, and the exit was a distant memory. With trembling hands, Sarah pulled a broken piece of wood from the couch, now a weapon in this theater of horrors. It felt absurd, futile, but she had to do something. As the scratching intensified, panic clawed at her heart. They're coming. Jason warned, eyes darting to the door. Wait, Sarah whispered. The doorknob rattled, a sinister rhythm of eagerness. Then, silence. Time slowed. The moment stretched on, hanging in the air like the bitter taste of fear. She searched her mind for a plan but found only darkness. Then, the door burst open, hitting the wall with a loud bang. A dark silhouette filled the entrance for a breathless second, a grotesque shape writhing against the threshold. Join us, Sarah, it hissed, and for a moment, the air buzzed with anticipation, like static before a storm. Something broke inside her. She clutched the children closer. Run! She yelled, and they scrambled out from behind the couch, sprinting past the monstrous figure. The darkness wafted around them like a tide, chasing them, grasping at their backs. Where do we go? Jason shouted over his shoulder, eyes wide with terror. Just keep moving. They flew through the doorway, the creature close behind, a cacophony of laughter echoing in their ears. Footsteps thundered behind them, growing louder, more frenetic. Sarah felt the air grow thick and heavy, stifling her senses. In the chaos, Sarah spotted a flash of light up ahead, a crack in the wall, as bright as hope in a sea of despair. This way. They veered toward it, desperation fueling their speed. But just as they reached the light, it flickered, wavering like a flame in the wind. Mommy! Lily screeched, her tiny voice cracking as the shadows surged forward, eager and insatiable. With a final burst of will, Sarah charged forward, the brightness flickering fiercely now. Could it be salvation or a false promise? As the darkness closed in, a voice whispered in her ear, chilling and low, "You cannot leave." The light dimmed, and the shadows surged like a tidal wave behind them. Was freedom a mere illusion, just another trick of the hunt? And then it was gone. Sarah braced herself, wondering what awaited them in that void of darkness. It was dark beyond the flickering light, the shadows shifting like restless spirits, clawing at her. Sarah's heart raced as she pushed the children ahead, determination battling against the suffocating dread that threatened to engulf them. She felt the shadows breathing, whispering promises of despair and loss, like cold fingers brushing against her back. Mommy! It's too dark. Lily whimpered, her voice trembling. Sarah clutched her children, her fingers gripping their small hands tightly. Just keep moving, she urged, her own voice quaking despite her efforts to sound steady. Each step felt like a struggle, the ground shifting beneath them as if it fought against their escape. Then out of the suffocating darkness, an echo of laughter rippled through the air, chilling her to the bone. It was the dark figure, the embodiment of their fears closing in. You can't escape the shadows, the voice taunted, thick with malice, swirling around them like the mist. Faster! Sarah yelled, adrenaline coursing through her. It was now or never. They stumbled into a desolate room, the walls closing in, adorned like a mausoleum filled with dark memories. She spat a curse at her fears, pushing forwards, but it was getting harder to breathe. In the distance, she spotted a window, the only exit left abandoned, cloaked in grime but offering a glimmer of hope. There. The window. She pointed, tugging her children to the far corner of the room. Climb through. Jason and Lily nodded, their expressions grim as they faced the grimy escape. They scrambled towards it, hearts hammering like wild drums. But just as they reached the ledge, a guttural roar thundered behind them. The darkness surged, fueled by its hunger, eager to devour their fleeting hope. Out of pure instinct, Sarah shoved her children through the opening, urgency breaking through her fear. Go, go, go! Panic surged as she felt the creature's presence thrumming behind her, almost tasting their fear. It was now or never. She would not let them fall prey to whatever haunted this dark nightmare. She pushed Jason through as Lily squeezed out, easily, while she turned for a final glance. The door splintered with a grotesque force, unraveling like old parchment. Shadows writhed and twisted in the moonlight, spilling through the window as the figure emerged, dark and looming, eyes burning with hunger. Leave her! The voice rumbled and twisted, cold like ice. Mom! Jason cried, but she shook her head, dread coiling tightly within her chest. I'll find you. Just run. With a fierce shove, she squeezed through the window, but the darkness was faster. It unleashed its rage, seizing at her heels. She felt its icy grip brushing against her as she dropped onto the other side. Searing pain shot through her ankle as she landed hard on the cold pavement. Gasping, Sarah rolled to her feet, forcing a glance back. The figure writhed, cascading in shadows, losing shape but growing larger, looming like a storm on the horizon. Run! She screamed, propelling her body towards the flicker of lights erupting on the street, the echo of her children leading the way. They darted into the street, breathless, hearts pounding against the knife edge of panic. But the laughter didn't fade, it lingered, a grotesque melody snaking through the air, coaxing her back. The lure of the darkness pulsed like a heartbeat, drawing at her, whispering promises she didn't dare believe. Where do we go now? Jason shouted, panting, fear etched on his face. We can't stay here. We need somewhere safe, Sarah replied, perspiration coating her brow. In that moment, she knew. They were not free, they were still being hunted. The streets of Ravenwood were never empty. The shadows still flickered, alive, as if they just waited for an invitation back to captivity. Over there. Lily pointed to an old garage, colors peeling under the weight of time, but it looked sturdy. We can hide inside. They sprinted towards it, every ounce of fear fueling their steps. Inside, it was dark but spacious, remnants of a life once lived cluttering the corners. Sarah paused only for a brief moment to catch her breath, pressing her back against the rusted metal wall, praying the shadows wouldn't follow them here. Mom, what if it finds us? Jason whispered, eyes wide, fear palpable in the trembling of his voice. We'll find a way to fight, Sarah replied, refusing to let her own fear bleed into their hearts. They can't keep us trapped forever. Then there was silence. The whispers outside had halted, and for that fleeting moment, they felt the night breathe with a hypnotic lull. But deep down, Sarah knew it was a ruse. They couldn't afford to let their guard down. Suddenly, a hiss cut through the quiet like a knife. You can't hide forever. The shadows pooled in the corners, tendrils stretching like a spider's web trying to ensnare them. Don't move. Sarah hissed as she grabbed the wrench from the gathered tools, adrenaline pumping through her body, ready for an inevitable confrontation. The walls pulsed rhythmically, shadows throbbing. Something inside the darkness lurked, waiting. I will find you, Mommy. Lily's voice quavered, an echo of their collective dread hanging in the air. "Hold my hand," Sarah said, squeezing tightly, defensive and ready. "We're not going to lose each other, no matter what." But just as she said it, the shadows erupted, twisting and writhing, forming arms that reached for them with unimaginable ferocity. The air grew thick, pressing down on her, as reality began to blur. In that moment, she knew they had a choice to make. Would they confront the shadow's insatiable hunger or succumb to its enticing whispers? Gripping her children's hands tightly, she took a deep breath, deciding this darkness wouldn't claim one more soul. They could confront the abyss together, and if they couldn't escape, at least they would fade as a family, fighting in unity. Together. But the darkness twisted and turned, swirling around them, pulling tight as they prepared to charge forward. It was now or never. Determined, they unleashed their own battle cry, surging toward the darkness that held them captive, ready to face whatever awaited in that swirling oblivion together. Just as the abyss reached out for them, everything erupted in white light. The shadows hissed, their shrieks echoing, struggling to hold on to the warmth disappearing into the void. Sarah felt her heart soar. They could fight back. With a final swing of the wrench and the strength of their bond, they pressed onward, refusing to let the shadows find purchase in their lives. Together. The light intensified, shining bright against the onslaught of the dark, illuminating their path like a beacon, a symbol of hope piercing through the storm. And in that moment, as they charged through the chaos, they knew they would not succumb to the darkness. They were the light pushing back. "Mommy, look!" Jason shouted as the blinding light enveloped them completely, and they were free, finally free, from the nightmare that once consumed Ravenwood. The diner stood in silence behind them, its hold severed, but its legend would linger. They had escaped, but they would carry the burden of those lost, forever vigilant against the unknown lurking in the shadows. No longer just a tale of terror, Ravenwood was now a cautionary whisper. And somewhere, in the shadows that had once consumed Sarah's life, the darkness trembled at their collective courage. "We are survivors in the heart of Ravenwood's streets." The echoes of the past would remain, but their bonds unbreakable would cast a new light against the lurking abyss, a promise to never be haunted again. As dawn crested the horizon, hope flickered anew, signaling an end to the horror, yet offering a fresh beginning. Together, they would write their own story now. Their laughter painted the morning, a melody for those lost, promising the universe they would never forget. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and support us massively. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Let us hear your thoughts. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.